Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. So today I'm back with another video. On today's video we are going to be using the pencil skirt pattern we did in our last video to actually cut and sew a pencil skirt. So if you want to learn how to cut and sew a pencil skirt, keep watching. But before I get into the video, if you have not subscribed to my channel already, please go ahead and click the subscribe button. So without further ado, let's get into the video.
We are going to be needing the following tools for this tutorial. Like I said before, we'll be using the pencil skirt pattern we drafted in our previous video. So we are going to be needing both the front and the back pattern for this tutorial. Then we'll need pin, scissors, a matching thread, a matching zipper, and a fabric, and of course scissors for this tutorial. Although you can't see the thread and the zip, but of course we need it when we are sewing. So the first thing you want to do is to fold your fabric into two, just the way I've done here, and then pin it down with pin your pattern paper to the fabric, just the way I'm doing here. So we are going to start with the front pattern. So the first thing is for us to pin the front pattern to the fabric to cut it out. You actually pin it down because if you don't pin it, when you start cutting, the pattern paper might shift from where you want it to be, or it may not be as straight as you want it. So it's always safe for you to pin it, to use your pin and pin the fabric and the pattern paper together before actually working on it. So yeah, that's what I'm doing here, just pinning it down to the fabric. After pinning it down, the next thing you want to do is to add your seam allowance. So I'm going ahead to add 1 inch seam allowance all around. I'll add 1 inch on the waist and all around, and then I'm going to also add 1 inch on the knee side for hem allowance. So after doing that, I'm going to go ahead and cut out the front pattern. Now that we are done with the front pattern, it's about time for us to cut the back pattern. So I'm following the exact same method I did for the front, pinning it all around and adding 1 inch seam allowance too. So I've added 1 inch hem allowance at the knee side and 1 inch seam allowance at the side, on the waist, on the hip, and on the thigh side, just for hem allowance, for seam allowance, sorry. And so the next thing, after adding that, the next thing I want to do is also cut it out, and then I'm going to show you what the front and the back pattern look like so far. After cutting out your front and your back pattern, before you remove the pattern paper, always remember to transfer your notches. Like, you have to notch where you marked for your dart, and then the zip allowance. Remember, we added 1 inch zip allowance on the pattern, so you have to mark where that is on the fabric so that when it's time for sewing you won't look for it. So after that, the next thing you want to do is to separate the back pattern into two. Remember, I told you that you can either cut it 2 times or cut it on 4. So now our back pattern is ready. We've cut it into 2. It's now time for us to proceed to the front pattern. Remember, we have to transfer our notches to the front on the front pattern, just the same way we did for the back. For the front pattern of the skirt, after marking our notches and removing the pattern paper, there's one important thing we have to do. You have to mark 1 inch from the top of the skirt in the middle and come down by 1 inch and then draw it into a straight line, just the way I've done here, and then remove it. This sort of makes the skirt to balance on your waist when you wear it. You know, the front is always, the back is higher than the front, so you come down by 1. So this is how it looks after removing the 1 inch. Now that the front and the back patterns are ready, the next thing is for us to cut the waistband of the skirt. For this particular waistband, I want it to be 2 inches wide, like the width, I want it to be 2 inches. So I've marked my waist circumference plus 2 inches, and now I'm going to mark 5 inches for the width of the skirt. This is because it's not on fold. If it were to be on fold, I would have cut 2.5 inch. So now I'm cutting 5 inches. By the time I fold it, I will have 2.5 inch on each side, so I will use the 1/2 inch to sew it to the main skirt. Now we have the waistband and the patterns of the skirt complete. Now I'm going to go ahead and iron the waistband and show you. So it's time for us to sew it. We'll use a matching zip, a matching thread to sew. So the first thing you want to do is to pin the 2 back patterns together before taking it to the sewing machine. You pin with the front side facing each other so you can sew from the back side. So I'm going to go ahead and pin my 2 back patterns together and then take it to the sewing machine to sew. Also remember to leave a zip space for where you add your zip on top, and then space for the slit down if you want it to have slit. So I've left my zip allowance up, and then I'm going to still leave some space down for the slit of the skirt. Not forgetting to back stitch at the beginning and also at the end to make the stitch strong and not unravel or loosen when I'm wearing it. So I've gone ahead and pinned my zip to the skirt. I'm going to go ahead and sew it. It's very important for you to pin. The importance of pinning your stuff to your fabric cannot be overemphasized, because if you don't pin this fabric together, when you are sewing, you discover that it's a little bit too stressful and you are finding it hard to hold the sides together and all that. So it's always better for you to pin your zip to your fabric when you are sewing, just the way I've done here. So yes, I'm going ahead to sew. I'm sewing the zip, maintaining this particular seam allowance that I need for the zip, and then I'm going to show you how it looks after sewing it. So I'm done with the zip. This is how it looks so far. It looks so clean and professionally finished and fine. As you can see, it's very, very fine and neat. So the next thing I want to do is to go ahead and sew the darts together. So I'm starting with the back darts. I've used a pin to mark the end of the dart. Remember, we added notches, so it's not hard to know where your dart is. So I'm sewing the darts. I'm going to go ahead and sew the 2 darts, back darts, and then also the front darts, and then I'll come and show you how the skirt, I'll show you how far we have gone so far. So yes, that's what I'm doing. I'll sew all the darts together and show you how far we've gone. So this is the skirt so far. We have the back pattern with the darts and the zip complete, as you can see, and I also have the front and the darts complete. Yes, so the next thing is for us to sew the 2 patterns together. First, you want to fold to pin them together, like I always say. and then I've pinned mine together. So I've taken it to the sewing machine and I'm sewing it together, maintaining the 1-inch seam allowance we added when we were cutting. Remember, we added 1-inch seam allowance on both sides. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to maintain that seam allowance, 1-inch seam allowance from the top, from the waist part to the new side. Don't forget to back stitch and at the beginning of your stitch and the end of your stitch. Is very important so that it does not unravel or loosen when you wear it. As you can see, I've done the back stitching at the beginning and I'm also going to do that at the end. So yes, we are almost done with this pattern. We're almost done. Like I said, it's very easy and it doesn't really take time. So at this point, we are adding the waistband to the skirt. But before you do this, you might want to try it on to see if there's any adjustment you have to do. You try it if the hip fits, the waist fits. If you try it on and see that it fits, so you can go ahead and add the waistband just the way I'm doing. I first of all pin my waistband to the main skirt and I'm going to stitch it all round. Remember, we added 1-inch seam allowance for the waistband, so on fold it's going to be half an inch. So I'm maintaining that half an inch seam allowance that I added for the waist. I'm going to sew it all round and then show you how it looks. The next thing you want to do after sewing your waistband to the skirt is to top stitch. This is to make your waistband and to relax well on the waist, and then to hold down the extra allowance you have inside the skirt. So I'm going to top stitch my the waist, and then I would hem it and show you the final look of the skirt, because this is like the last stage of the skirt. After top stitching the waistband, the next thing is for us to hem the skirt on the new side. Remember, we added 1 inch for the hemming. So after that, our skirt is done. Yay! So I've gone ahead and I've hemmed the skirt off camera, and this is the final look. This is the front of the skirt. It's so beautiful and it fits perfectly on my body. So I really like it and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel and give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and share my video too. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.